we're going to do a couple things a little different this morning with our meditation. One is right after the meditation, normally we have a soloist, and today we're going to have an instrumental piece. So just a heads up on that. So just move into it, see how that flows for you, okay? So the other thing is I want to introduce a few of women mystics into our heart and into our awareness and presence. So in this morning meditation, I'm going to invite you into a woman mystic, a Muslim woman mystic named Rabia. And Rabia is world-renowned as a saint, actually. She grew up she was born into a family, and she was the fourth child. She was her name means fourth child. So Rabia means fourth child. And the family was so incredibly poor that they could barely feed the children. And it was just a very rough time in the Middle East. And so Rabia's parents died, her father died, and then her mother died. And she and her sisters they only had girls, and she and her sisters were left on the street. And then at some point, she was kidnapped, she was stolen, stolen and sold into slavery. And so she did the hard work every day that the slave master had her doing, and she was just a young child. But she had this incredibly deep devotion to God. Her father had that devotion as well, and she had learned it from her father. And so in the daytime, she would work endless hours, and then at nighttime, she would pray. And at one point, the slave master was in his room sleeping, but all of a sudden he woke up hearing her pray, and he came out, and there was this amazing, beautiful, illuminating light streaming, just pouring out of Rabia's room. And he looked in, and on top of her head, what was right above her head, in the invisible realm, so it was magical or mystical, was a lantern. And Rabia is known for pouring that light from the lantern out into the world. She was a poet. She was a deep, wise woman. After the slave master saw that lantern and the light pouring out of her, the next morning he released her and set her free, because he knew she was of God and she was too powerful for him. And so she became a celibate ascetic, and people came to her far and wide for her teachings and her wisdom. So I'm going to share for the next 4 or 5 minutes, one of her prayers. So I invite you to close your eyes and just settle into your heart where we know God is always. God lives in our hearts. God lives everywhere. And God lived in Rabia. Rabia lived in the 8th century, which was in the time of the 800s, and she lived in the Middle East. So if you can just think of her name, Rabia. Think of her story. Think of her love and her devotion to God, and your love and your devotion to God. I'm going to read this poem or prayer 2 times. And each time I just invite you to listen to it, not with your head, but with your heart, with the entirety of your being. And as you listen to it, see what resonates in your heart, if anything, hopefully something. In my soul, there is a temple, a shrine, a mosque, a church, where I kneel. Prayer should always bring us to an altar where no walls or names exist. Is there not a region of love where the sovereignty is illumined nothing? Where ecstasy gets poured into itself and becomes lost? Where the wing is fully alive, but no mind or body? In my soul there is a temple, a shrine, a mosque, a church that dissolve in God. In my soul there is a temple, a shrine, a mosque, a church where I kneel. Prayer should bring us to an altar where no walls or names exist. Is there not a region of love where the sovereignty is illumined nothing? Where ecstasy gets poured into itself and becomes lost? Where the wing is fully alive but has no mind or body? In my soul there is a temple, a shrine, a mosque, a church that dissolve in God. So if this prayer of Rabia resonates with you, or any word or any line of it does, I invite you to carry that into your day. And uplift her as a woman saint, as a mystic on the path just like we are, who lived in the 8th century in the challenges of the world, just as we are living today in the challenges of the world. But she devoted her life to God, just as we are devoting our life to spirit, to God, to love.